Let's take a look at the advanced settings menu on your ViewSonic EDLA panel. I'm going to go here to settings, and over here on the left you're going to notice if I scroll down that I'm going to get an option called advanced, and if I select it, it's going to ask you to create a password. Now I've already created one, but you can't get into the advanced settings without creating a passcode. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my password here. And you're immediately going to notice that there's this option called Startup and Shutdown. And of course, we can configure how the panel turns on. For example, we can choose the boot mode. Now, if you remember from the setup video, the boot mode lets you choose between normal, secure, or disabled OS. Normally, we leave it on normal because we want the panel to operate fully. However, there might be an environment where you want to disable the embedded OS. Just keep in mind, if you select this, it will reboot the panel and you won't be able to access the Android side again unless you re-enable it with the debug menu. You'll also notice we have the startup input menu. So the default is last shutdown channel, and what that means is that when the panel turns off, if it's on HDMI 1, the next time the panel turns on, it goes to HDMI 1. If it's on the ViewBoard and it turns off, next time it turns on, it goes back to the ViewBoard. But you can tell the panel what you want it to boot to. For example, if I want it to boot to the Android side every time, I can choose ViewBoard. If I have a permanent connected desktop to the panel, I might choose HDMI 1. Or if you have a Chrome OPS slot in or a Windows OPS slot in, you can choose the PC option. So every time it boots, it's going to go to that input. Now you're also going to have what we call standby mode. Normally we leave it on hibernate. What that means is that the panel will fully shut off. However, if you don't want the panel to fully shut off, you can also put it in sleep mode. Just keep in mind that reduces the life of the panel because it's staying on longer. Now, if I scroll down, you're going to see here that there's this option called Energy Star. Energy Star is a setting that will turn off the panel if there's 1 hour of inactivity. And what I mean by inactivity is touch. If there is no touch for 1 hour, then this panel will shut off. So that means if you're showing a video and it's 1 hour and 5 minutes long, video is not active because no one's touching the panel, so it would shut off after 1 hour. So a lot of times people like to disable the Energy Star so you don't have any accidental shutoffs. And then of course you can add your own startup and shutdown schedule so the panel will turn on and turn off at certain times. The downside to this is that the panel will have a turn on time even if nobody's using it. So a lot of times we recommend using Manager to set up a job that shuts down the panels at a specific time. Be sure to check out our videos on Manager if you want to learn how to do that. Now we can use the back button here to go back. We'll go to our input source menu. From here we can do many things, like we can relabel our inputs. For example, if HDMI 1 or HDMI 2 is where someone's connecting their laptop, or maybe it's a document camera connected to it, we can rename these so when we're switching inputs, it's labeled more clearly. You also have the ability to disable inputs if you don't want certain inputs utilized. You'll also notice that we have other options like wake the panel up when it detects a source. So for example, if I were to plug in my laptop, it would automatically switch to that input based on these settings. So depending on what you want and how you're using the panel, you can adjust many of these. You'll also notice there's this energy saving option. What's energy saving? Well, energy saving is different than Energy Star, which we talked about earlier, because energy saving is a timer for when the panel detects no signal. So let's pretend I was plugged in with USB-C for my laptop, and I unplugged my laptop. Immediately the panel is going to show no signal because there's nothing connected to USB-C anymore. The panel will sit there for 10 minutes with no signal, and then it will shut off. If I were to switch to the ViewBoard OS, then this wouldn't apply because the ViewBoard or the Android side is considered active. But if I'm on an input with no source, I have 10 minutes until that panel will shut off. You can decrease the time or you can turn it off completely. Now, if we go down here to security settings, you'll notice, for example, we can change settings like don't allow apps from unknown sources. We can password protect the ViewBoard settings. We can reset all of our settings. And just as a little side note, most of this can be configured using My ViewBoard Manager if you have the advanced license. Now down here you'll notice there's a pin detection and a pin detection app. Some of our panels have what we call right-away detection, where if you pull the stylus off, you can choose what it does. So for example, if I pull the stylus off, I can have it turn on the side tool marker, or I could have it open My ViewBoard whiteboard. Keep in mind, depending on your panel, you may not have this feature. And then finally, we have what's called the home key behavior. And this is an important one. If, for example, I'm not using the Android side a lot, maybe again, you have that Chrome OPS slot in, right? Or a Windows OPS slot in. If I press the home button here, it always takes me back to the Android side. However, we can remap the home button to go to a Windows OPS or desktop, or we can make it go to an Android OPS. So you can adjust these so when you press the home button, it's not taking you to the Android side, it's taking you to whatever connected device that you're using. So that's the advanced menu. I know it's a lot, but it gives you the power to control the panel and set it up in a way that is really easy for your users to access and does what you expect it to do.